The Juggernaut's captain, Admiral Leah Williams, surveyed the bridge with a sense of unwavering confidence. Her decades of experience had instilled in her an unshakable belief in the Coalition's technological supremacy. As the ship glided silently through the void, she allowed herself a rare moment of pride, knowing that her command of the Juggernaut represented the pinnacle of human engineering and martial prowess. Status report. Leah barked, her steely gaze fixed on the forward view screen. All systems nominal, ma'am, her executive officer replied, his voice betraying the slightest hint of boredom. Shields at maximum, weapons primed and ready. We're the most powerful vessel in the fleet. Nothing out here can touch us. Leah allowed herself a thin smile. Excellent. Maintain course and speed. I want a complete sweep of the sector before we... The captain's orders were suddenly cut off by a series of urgent alarms blaring across the bridge. Leah whirled around, her expression hardening as the sensor officer's panicked voice filled the air. Unknown energy signature detected, bearing 215 Mark IV. It's gathering power, ma'am. The readings are off the charts. Leah's mind raced as she processed the information. Evasive maneuvers, now. Ready all batteries. Target that contact. But before the Juggernaut could react, a brilliant beam of light lanced out from the darkness, striking the ship's stern with devastating force. The mighty vessel shuddered under the intensity of the blow, its shields buckling and failing as the unknown weapon carved a path through the armor. Shields down to 30% and falling. The tactical officer reported, his voice tinged with panic. Hull breaches on decks 12 through 22. Leah gripped the arms of her chair, her knuckles turning white, as she fought to regain control of the situation. Damage control teams, seal off those decks immediately. Reroute all available power to the forward shields. The bridge crew scrambled to comply, their fingers flying across the consoles as they fought to stabilize the crippled ship. But it was no use. The mysterious weapon had struck with a power that defied all their defenses. Leah felt a cold dread creeping up her spine as she realized the Juggernaut was helpless against this unknown foe. What in the name of the Founders is that thing? She muttered under her breath, her eyes narrowing as she stared into the void, searching for any sign of the attacker. Suddenly, a new alarm blared to life, its shrill tone cutting through the chaos of the bridge. Main reactor is offline. The chief engineer's voice crackled over the comm. We've lost all primary power. The entire aft section is gone. Leah's heart sank as the full implications of the situation dawned on her. Without power, the Juggernaut was nothing more than a lifeless husk, drifting helplessly through the void. And with the aft section destroyed, their chances of escaping were slim to none. Helm. Get us out of here, maximum thrust. She barked, her voice betraying a rare note of desperation. But the helmsman's reply only served to further shatter her confidence. I'm sorry, ma'am, but the engines are offline. We've lost all propulsion. We're dead in the water. Leah stared at the view screen, her mind racing as she grappled with the horrifying reality before her. The Juggernaut, the mightiest warship in the Coalition's arsenal, had been reduced to a crippled, powerless wreck, all by a single devastating attack from an unknown and seemingly unstoppable foe. Emergency distress signal. Now. She snapped, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the void, searching for any sign of the mysterious weapon. We need to get word to the fleet, warned them. But before the order could be carried out, a new series of alarms interrupted her, their shrill cries filling the air with a sense of dread. Multiple hull breaches, decks 3 through 9. The damage control officer reported, his voice tinged with barely contained panic. We're venting atmosphere. The ship is tearing itself apart. Leah felt her heart sink as she realized the grim truth. The Juggernaut was doomed. Whatever that weapon was, it had struck a mortal blow, and there was nothing she or her crew could do to save their beloved flagship from its fate. All hands, abandon ship. She barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. Get to the escape pods now. We need to get as many people off this vessel as possible. As the bridge crew scrambled to comply, Leah took one last, lingering look at the view screen, her eyes narrowing with a mixture of fear and determination. Whoever or whatever had dealt this devastating blow, she swore they would pay for it, no matter the cost. With that, she turned and raced towards the nearest escape pod, her mind racing as she tried to make sense of the unfolding horror. The Juggernaut, the pride of the Coalition fleet, had been brought low by a single devastating strike. And now, the fate of the entire galaxy hung in the balance. As the Juggernaut's escape pods jettisoned into the void, Admiral Leah Williams clutched the sides of her seat, her knuckles turning white from the strain. The once mighty Flagship was now little more than a lifeless, scared hulk, its proud silhouette marred by the gaping wounds inflicted by the mysterious weapon. Leah's mind raced as she replayed the events of the last few harrowing minutes. The Juggernaut, the pride of the Coalition fleet, had been reduced to a crippled, powerless wreck in the span of a single devastating attack. And the weapon that had delivered that blow, a weapon that seemed to defy all the laws of physics and technology that humanity had mastered, left her with a sinking feeling of dread. What was that thing? She muttered under her breath, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the darkness for any sign of the elusive attacker. How could it have just obliterated us like that? The answers eluded her, lost in the chaos and confusion that had engulfed the bridge in those final, desperate moments. All she knew was that the Juggernaut, once considered the most powerful warship in the galaxy, had been reduced to a lifeless husk by a single, incomprehensible strike. As the escape pod drifted away from the stricken vessel, Leah's gaze shifted to the view screen, where she could see the other pods being launched in a desperate bid for survival. Her heart sank as she realized that only a fraction of her crew had managed to escape before the Juggernaut's final demise. "We need to get word to the fleet," she murmured, her voice laced with a sense of grim determination. "They have to know what happened here, and they have to be prepared for whatever that thing was." Leah reached for the comm panel, her fingers flying across the controls as she transmitted a distress signal. She knew that it was a long shot, given the Juggernaut's distance from the nearest Coalition outpost, but it was their only hope of summoning help in time. As the message played out, Leah turned her attention back to the stricken vessel, now little more than a speck in the distance. Her heart ached at the sight, the realization that the Juggernaut, the symbol of humanity's technological mastery, had been reduced to nothing more than a graveyard for her fallen crew. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her eyes burning with unchecked tears. "I should have been able to save you." The moments ticked by in agonizing silence, and Leah felt a growing sense of desperation as she waited for any sign of a response to her distress call. The emptiness of the void seemed to press in around her, a suffocating reminder of just how alone they were. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a familiar voice crackled to life over the comm. "This is Coalition Outpost Sigma. We copy your distress signal. What's your status, Juggernaut?" Leah felt a surge of relief, but it was tinged with a sense of dread. "Outpost Sigma. This is Admiral Leah Williams of the UGC Juggernaut. We've sustained catastrophic damage and are adrift in the void. The ship is lost. We need immediate evac and reinforcements." There was a moment of silence on the other end, and Leah could almost feel the shock radiating through the comm. "Understood, Admiral," the reply came, the voice laced with a mixture of disbelief and concern. "We're dispatching a rescue fleet immediately. Hold tight. Help is on the way." Leah nodded grimly, her gaze once more fixed on the distant wreckage of the Juggernaut. "Hurry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "We don't know what else is out there." As the escape pod drifted aimlessly through the void, Leah felt a growing sense of unease. The weapon that had destroyed the Juggernaut was unlike anything she had ever encountered, a display of power that defied all of humanity's technological advancements. And the fact that it had vanished so quickly, leaving no trace of its origins, only served to heighten her sense of dread. What or who had unleashed such a devastating force upon the Coalition's flagship? And more importantly, were they still out there, lurking in the darkness, waiting to strike again? Leah clenched her fists, her resolve hardening as she vowed to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. She would not rest until she had discovered the secrets of this forgotten superweapon and found a way to protect the Coalition from its devastating power. The fate of the entire galaxy hung in the balance, and Leah knew that failure was simply not an option. As the escape pods drifted aimlessly in the void, the full extent of the Juggernaut's devastation began to sink in. Damage reports flooded the communications channels, painting a grim picture of the once mighty flagship's fate. Main reactor is offline, life support systems failing. The chief engineer's voice crackled over the comm. The entire aft section has been completely destroyed. We've lost all propulsion and our venting atmosphere. This ship is coming apart at the seams. Leah clenched her jaw, her knuckles turning white as she gripped the armrests of her seat. The Juggernaut, the pride of the Coalition fleet, had been reduced to a lifeless husk by a single devastating attack. And now the lives of her crew hung in the balance as they desperately fought to keep the stricken vessel from tearing itself apart. Damage control teams, seal off those breaches immediately. Leah barked, her voice carrying a sense of urgency. Reroute all available power to life support and containment fields. We need to keep this ship stable until the rescue fleet arrives. The crew sprang into action, their fingers flying across the consoles as they struggled to stabilize the Juggernaut. But the damage was too severe, the wounds inflicted by the mysterious weapon too grievous to be easily mended. We're losing cabin pressure on decks 12 through 22. The tactical officer reported, his voice tinged with panic. The bulkheads are buckling. We can't hold it. Leah felt a growing sense of dread as she listened to the ever-worsening reports. The Juggernaut was dying, and there was nothing she or her crew could do to stop it. Their mighty warship, once the symbol of humanity's technological dominance, was now little more than a lifeless, drifting hulk, its proud silhouette marred by the gaping wounds inflicted by the unknown weapon. Transmit a distress signal to the nearest Coalition outpost, Leah ordered, her voice steady despite the turmoil raging around her. We need reinforcements, and we need them now. This ship won't last much longer. The communications officer nodded, his fingers flying across the controls as he sent out the desperate plea for help. Leah watched anxiously, her eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of the approaching rescue fleet. Seconds ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity as the Juggernaut continued to hemorrhage life. Leah's heart raced, her mind racing with 1,000 scenarios, each one more dire than the last. Finally, after what felt like an agonizing eternity, a familiar voice crackled to life over the comm. This is Coalition Outpost Sigma. We copy your distress signal. What's your status, Juggernaut? Leah felt a surge of relief, but it was quickly tempered by the grim reality of their situation. Outpost Sigma. This is Admiral Leah Williams. We've sustained catastrophic damage and are adrift in the void. The ship is coming apart. We need immediate evac and reinforcements. There was a moment of silence on the other end, and Leah could almost feel the shock radiating through the comm. Understood, Admiral. The reply came, the voice laced with a mixture of disbelief and concern. We're dispatching a rescue fleet immediately. Hold tight. Help is on the way. Leah nodded grimly, her gaze once more fixed on the distant wreckage of the Juggernaut. Hurry, she whispered, her voice barely audible. We don't know what else is out there. As the escape pods drifted away from the stricken vessel, Leah felt a growing sense of unease. The weapon that had destroyed the Juggernaut was unlike anything she had ever encountered, a display of power that defied all of humanity's technological advancements. And the fact that it had vanished so quickly, leaving no trace of its origins, only served to heighten her sense of dread. What, or who, had unleashed such a devastating force upon the Coalition's flagship? And more importantly, were they still out there, lurking in the darkness, waiting to strike again? Leah clenched her fists, her resolve hardening as she vowed to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. She would not rest until she had discovered the secrets of this forgotten superweapon and found a way to protect the Coalition from its devastating power. The fate of the entire galaxy hung in the balance, and Leah knew that failure was simply not an option. As the rescue fleet approached, Leah felt a surge of relief, tempered by the overwhelming sense of loss. The Juggernaut, her beloved flagship, was beyond saving, a hollow, lifeless husk adrift in the void. But even as she mourned the passing of her ship, Leah's mind was already racing, focused on the task at hand. She would find the answers, no matter what it took. And when she did, the Coalition would be ready, prepared to face whatever dark forces had dared to challenge the might of humanity. The rescue fleet arrived swiftly, their sleek vessels cutting through the void with a sense of urgency. As the battered escape pods were carefully towed aboard, a flurry of activity erupted on the bridge of the lead ship. Admiral Leah Williams, her face etched with a mixture of grief and determination, stepped forward to brief the assembled officers. "Gentlemen, the situation is grave," she began, her voice steady despite the weight of the news she was about to deliver. "The Juggernaut, our flagship, has been destroyed, completely obliterated by some kind of unknown weapon." A stunned silence fell over the room as the gravity of her words sank in. The Juggernaut, the most powerful warship in the Coalition's arsenal, reduced to little more than a lifeless hulk adrift in the void. It was a shocking and unthinkable turn of events, one that left the seasoned officers grappling with a sense of disbelief. "How is that possible?" One of the younger commanders finally spoke up, his voice tinged with a hint of panic. The Juggernaut's defenses were impenetrable. What kind of weapon could have done this? Leah shook her head solemnly. "That's what we need to find out. Whatever attacked us, it was unlike anything we've ever encountered." The damage was severe. The entire aft section was completely destroyed. The main reactor is offline, and we're venting atmosphere. If we hadn't managed to get the crew into the escape pods, we would have lost everyone. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembled officers. "I need a team of our best scientists and engineers to examine the wreckage, to see if they can uncover any clues about the nature of this weapon. And I want security patrols doubled, with orders to be on the lookout for any similar anomalies. We can't afford to be caught off guard like this again." The commanders nodded grimly, their minds already racing with the implications of Leah's words. The loss of the Juggernaut was a devastating blow, not just to the Coalition's military might, but to the very morale of the fleet. If such a powerful vessel could be so easily destroyed, what hope did the rest of the Armada have against this unknown threat? As the rescue operation commenced, Leah found herself drawn to the bridge of the lead ship, her eyes fixed on the distant, scared husk of the Juggernaut. The once mighty vessel, a symbol of humanity's technological dominance, now reduced to little more than a graveyard for her fallen crew. Leah felt a pang of guilt, knowing that she had been powerless to save her beloved flagship. If only she had been able to react more quickly, to anticipate the attack and mount a proper defense. But the weapon that had struck them was like nothing she had ever encountered, a display of power that defied all of their technological advancements. "What are we dealing with here?" she murmured, her brow furrowed in a deep frown. It was a question that weighed heavily on her mind, one that she knew would haunt her until she found the answers. The fate of the entire galaxy hung in the balance, and Leah was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. As the rescue teams began the painstaking process of sifting through the Juggernaut's wreckage, Leah turned her attention to the task at hand. She would need to assemble the best and brightest minds the Coalition had to offer, scientists and engineers who could help her unravel the mystery of this forgotten superweapon. But even as she began to formulate her plan, a nagging sense of unease crept into the back of her mind. What if this was just the beginning? What if there were more of these devastating weapons out there, waiting to be unleashed upon the unsuspecting Coalition? Leah clenched her fists, her resolve hardening as she banished the doubts from her mind. She would not be caught off guard again. This time, They would be ready, prepared to face whatever dark forces had dared to challenge the might of humanity. With a newfound sense of purpose, Leah stepped forward, her gaze sweeping across the assembled officers. "Gentlemen, we have our work cut out for us. But I can assure you, we will get to the bottom of this. And when we do, we'll be ready to defend the coalition against any who would dare to challenge us." The commanders nodded, their eyes reflecting a similar determination. They knew the stakes were high, that the fate of the entire galaxy hung in the balance. But with Leah at the helm, they were confident that they would uncover the answers they sought and find a way to protect their people from this newfound threat. As the rescue operation continued, Leah turned her attention to the wreckage of the Juggernaut, her mind already racing with 1,000 questions. Whatever had destroyed her beloved flagship, she was determined to find it, and to put an end to the devastation it had wrought. In the aftermath of the Juggernaut's destruction, a pall of somber silence fell over the coalition fleet as the magnitude of the loss began to sink in. Admiral Leah Williams, her face etched with a mix of grief and determination, oversaw the painstaking process of sifting through the wreckage. Her eyes narrowed in a focused search for any clues that could shed light on the nature of the weapon that had brought down their flagship. Joining Leah in the investigation was Dr. Sarah Chen, the Coalition's foremost expert on advanced weapon systems and technologies. As the salvage teams combed through the debris, Chen and her team of scientists carefully catalogued and analyzed every fragment, every scrap of twisted metal and scorched circuitry they recovered. "This is unlike anything I've ever seen," Chen murmured, her brow furrowed in a deep frown as she studied the data streaming across her datapad. The energy signature, the sheer destructive power of this weapon. It defies all known principles of physics and engineering. Leah nodded grimly, her gaze fixed on the twisted remains of the Juggernaut. "That's what I was afraid of. Whatever hit us, it wasn't just some advanced piece of hardware. It was something far more powerful, something that shouldn't even be possible." Chen's eyes narrowed as she considered the implications, which means we're not dealing with a typical enemy. This is something else entirely. Some kind of ancient, forgotten technology that's been reawakened. And if that's the case, we're in uncharted territory. The Admiral let out a heavy sigh, her fingers tapping restlessly against the bulkhead as she struggled to process the gravity of the situation. "Then we need to find out everything we can about this forgotten technology. Where it came from, who wields it, and how we can defend against it. The fate of the entire galaxy may be at stake here." Chen nodded in agreement, her mind already racing with 1,000 questions. "I'll mobilize my best team. Pull in every resource we have. We need to work fast. Whatever this thing is, it's clearly a threat unlike anything the Coalition has ever faced before." As the investigation intensified, whispers of the Juggernaut's demise began to circulate through the fleet, fueling a growing sense of unease and uncertainty among the ranks. The once invincible flagship, reduced to little more than a lifeless husk adrift in the void. It was a shocking and unsettling development that shook the very foundations of the Coalition's military might. Leah could feel the shift in the air, the tension and fear that threatened to take hold. She knew she had to act quickly, to rally her forces and steer them toward a path of resolution, and ultimately, redemption. "Assemble the fleet commanders," she commanded, her voice carrying the sense of urgency. "We need to coordinate our efforts, pool our resources and our expertise. I want every ship, every asset we have, focused on uncovering the truth behind this weapon and finding a way to defend against it." The orders were swiftly carried out, and within hours, the Coalition's top military leaders had convened in a hastily arranged conference. Leah stood before them, her gaze sweeping across the assembled faces, each one carrying a mix of concern and resolve. "Gentlemen, we find ourselves in a grave and unprecedented situation," she began, her tone measured and authoritative. "The Juggernaut, the pride of our fleet, has been destroyed by a weapon unlike anything we've ever encountered. A weapon that seems to defy the very laws of physics and technology that we've mastered." A murmur of unease rippled through the room, and Leah raised a hand to silence it. But this is not a time for despair or resignation. It is a time for action, for determination, and for the unwavering spirit that has always defined the coalition. Her eyes narrowed, her expression hardening with a sense of purpose. We will not rest until we have uncovered the truth behind this forgotten superweapon. We will mobilize every resource at our disposal, every brilliant mind and capable hand, to find a way to defend against it. And when we do, we will strike back with all the fury and resolve of a united humanity. The commanders nodded, their faces reflecting a renewed sense of purpose. They knew the stakes were high, that the very future of the coalition hung in the balance. But with Leah at the helm, they were confident that they would prevail, that they would find a way to protect their people from this newfound threat. As the meeting adjourned, Leah turned her attention to the wreckage of the Juggernaut, her eyes narrowing with a steely determination. Whatever had destroyed her beloved flagship, she was going to find it, and she was going to put an end to the devastation it had wrought. The fate of the galaxy depended on it. In the weeks that followed the Juggernaut's destruction, a growing sense of unease and uncertainty began to spread through the ranks of the coalition fleet. The loss of their flagship, once considered the most powerful warship in the galaxy, had shaken the very foundations of their military might, leaving the crew and commanders questioning the limits of their technological superiority. As the investigation into the mysterious weapon intensified, troubling rumors and whispers began to circulate. Whispers of an ancient, forgotten superweapon, a relic from a bygone era of galactic conflict that had somehow been reawakened and wielded against the coalition. Admiral Leah Williams, her expression etched with a mix of determination and grim resolve, convened a secret meeting with the coalition's top scientific and military minds, determined to uncover the truth behind this newfound threat. "Gentlemen, we can no longer afford to ignore the rumors that have been circulating," Leah began, her voice carrying a sense of urgency. "The weapon that destroyed the Juggernaut was unlike anything we've ever encountered, a display of power that defies all of our technological advancements." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembled faces. "Which means we're not dealing with a typical enemy. This is something else entirely, some kind of ancient forgotten technology that's been reawakened. And if that's the case, we're in uncharted territory." Dr. Sarah Chen, the coalition's foremost expert on advanced weapon systems, nodded solemnly. "The evidence we've gathered supports that conclusion, Admiral. The energy signature, the sheer destructive power of this weapon, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. It's as if it's drawing upon some fundamental, unknown force that we simply can't comprehend." Leah's brow furrowed in a deep frown. "Then we need to find out everything we can about this forgotten technology, where it came from, who wields it, and how we can defend against it. The fate of the entire galaxy may be at stake here." The assembled scientists and military strategists exchanged uneasy glances, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily upon them. They knew that the stakes were higher than they had ever faced before, that the very future of the coalition hung in the balance. "We'll need to mobilize every resource at our disposal," one of the commanders, a grizzled veteran named General Riker, spoke up. "Every ship, every asset, focused on uncovering the truth and finding a way to defend against this weapon." Leah nodded in agreement. "That's exactly what I had in mind. I want you all to coordinate your efforts, pool your knowledge and expertise. Leave no stone unturned. We need to find the answers, and we need to find them fast." As the meeting adjourned, the sense of urgency and determination only grew stronger. The coalition's top minds were now fully engaged in the hunt for the truth, driven by the realization that the very survival of their civilization was at stake. In the days that followed, the investigation took on a feverish pace, with teams of scientists and engineers combing through the wreckage of the Juggernaut, analyzing every fragment, every scrap of data they could recover. Meanwhile, the coalition's fleet remained on high alert, with ships patrolling the edges of their territory, vigilantly searching for any sign of the mysterious weapon or its wielder. As the weeks turned into months, the pressure only mounted, the urgency of their mission weighing heavily on everyone involved. Leah, her once steely demeanor softened by the strain of the situation, found herself increasingly consumed by the search for answers, her every waking moment focused on uncovering the truth. But despite their best efforts, the elusive nature of the weapon continued to frustrate and confound them. The energy signature they had detected, the sheer power of the blast that had destroyed the Juggernaut. It was as if the weapon had simply vanished back into the void, leaving no trace of its origins or its wielder. Leah gritted her teeth, her hands clenching into fists as she stared out at the endless expanse of space. "It can't just disappear," she muttered, her voice tinged with a hint of desperation. "There has to be something, some clue, that we're missing." As the investigation reached a critical juncture, the Coalition's top scientists and strategists convened once more, their faces etched with a mixture of determination and growing concern. "We're running out of time, Admiral," Chen said, her voice grave. "Whatever this weapon is, it's clear that it's a threat unlike anything we've ever faced before. And if we can't find a way to defend against it, the consequences could be catastrophic." Leah nodded, her expression hardening with a renewed sense of purpose. "Then we have no choice but to keep searching. The fate of the galaxy depends on it." With that, she turned her attention back to the task at hand, her mind racing with 1,000 possible scenarios, each one more dire than the last. Whatever lay in wait for them, she was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. As the investigation into the mysterious weapon that had destroyed the Juggernaut continued, a new and unsettling revelation began to emerge, one that sent shockwaves through the highest echelons of the Coalition. After months of painstaking research and analysis, the team of scientists and engineers, led by Dr. Sarah Chen, had uncovered a disturbing truth. The weapon they were dealing with was not simply an advanced piece of technology, but rather a relic from a bygone era of galactic conflict, a remnant of an ancient and highly advanced civilization that had long since vanished from the known universe. "What you're telling me is that this weapon, this forgotten superweapon, was created by a species that predates our own history?" Admiral Leah Williams asked, her brow furrowed in a deep frown. Chen nodded solemnly, her expression grave. "That's exactly what the data is suggesting, Admiral. The level of sophistication, the sheer power we're dealing with. It's unlike anything we've ever encountered. It's as if this weapon is drawing upon some fundamental, unknown force that we simply can't comprehend." Leah felt a chill run down her spine as the implications of Chen's words sank in. If this weapon was the product of a civilization that had existed long before the Coalition, then the threat it posed was far greater than they had ever imagined. "Then we're not just dealing with an advanced enemy," the Admiral said, her voice low and measured. "We're dealing with something that transcends our own understanding of the universe." The other officers in the room exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of Leah's words settling heavily upon them. They had known that the stakes were high, that the fate of the entire galaxy hung in the balance, but this revelation only served to heighten the sense of dread and uncertainty that had been building within the fleet. "So what does that mean for us?" One of the younger commanders spoke up, his voice tinged with a hint of panic. "If this weapon is the product of a civilization that's long since disappeared, how can we possibly hope to defend against it?" Leah fixed the commander with a steely gaze, her expression unwavering. "It means we need to redouble our efforts, to leave no stone unturned in our search for a solution. We can't afford to be caught off guard again. The very future of the Coalition depends on our ability to find a way to protect ourselves against this threat." Chen nodded in agreement, her mind already racing with 1,000 possible avenues of research and exploration. "We'll need to expand the investigation, pull in every asset and resource we can muster. If this weapon is truly the product of an ancient, forgotten civilization, then there may be clues, fragments of information, scattered across the galaxy that could help us understand its origins and its weaknesses." Leah's eyes narrowed as she considered the challenge that lay before them. "Then that's what we'll do. I want every ship, every team of scientists and engineers, focused on this task. We can't afford to fail, not when the very fate of our civilization is at stake. As the meeting adjourned, the air of urgency and determination only grew stronger. The coalition's top minds were now fully engaged in the hunt for the truth, driven by the realization that the very survival of their people depended on their ability to uncover the secrets of this forgotten superweapon. In the days and weeks that followed, the investigation took on a feverish pace, with research teams scouring the furthest reaches of the known universe, searching for any scrap of information that could help them understand the true nature of the threat they were facing. Leah, her once steely demeanor softened by the strain of the situation, found herself increasingly consumed by the search for answers, her every waking moment focused on the task at hand. She knew that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and she was determined to do whatever it took to protect her people from this newfound threat. As the months passed, the pressure only mounted, the urgency of their mission weighing heavily on everyone involved. But despite the challenges they faced, the coalition's scientists and strategists remained steadfast in their pursuit of the truth, driven by a sense of purpose and a burning desire to uncover the secrets of this forgotten superweapon. And as they delved deeper into the mystery, a shocking realization began to take shape, one that would forever change the course of the galaxy's future. As the investigation into the mysterious superweapon that had destroyed the Juggernaut reached a critical juncture, Admiral Leah Williams and her team of scientists and engineers made a shocking discovery, one that would forever alter the course of the galaxy's future. After months of painstaking research and analysis, Dr. Sarah Chen and her team had uncovered a disturbing truth. The weapon they were dealing with was not simply an advanced piece of technology, but rather a relic from a bygone era, a remnant of an ancient and highly advanced civilization that had long since vanished from the known universe. The implications of this revelation were staggering. If the weapon was the product of a civilization that predated even the Coalition's own history, then the threat it posed was far greater than anyone had ever imagined. "We're not just dealing with an advanced enemy here," Leah said, her voice low and measured as she addressed the assembled commanders and advisors. "We're dealing with something that transcends our own understanding of the universe, a power that we may not be able to comprehend, let alone defend against." The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling heavily upon the gathered leaders. They had known that the stakes were high, that the fate of the entire galaxy hung in the balance, but this revelation only served to heighten the sense of dread and uncertainty that had been building within the fleet. "So what does this mean for us?" one of the younger commanders asked, his voice tinged with a hint of panic. "If this weapon is the product of a civilization that's long since disappeared, how can we possibly hope to defend against it?" Leah fixed the commander with a steely gaze, her expression unwavering. "It means we need to find a way to harness its power, to turn it against those who would wield it against us." The room erupted in a flurry of murmurs and objections, but Leah raised a hand to silence them. "I know it sounds impossible, but we don't have a choice. This weapon is unlike anything we've ever encountered. It transcends our understanding of physics and technology. If we can't find a way to defend against it, then the entire galaxy is at risk." Dr. Chen stepped forward, her brow furrowed in a deep frown. "Admiral, I understand your determination, but harnessing the power of this weapon, it's an incredibly risky proposition. We still don't fully understand its capabilities or the principles that govern its function. Any attempt to wield it could have catastrophic consequences." Leah's gaze hardened, her expression unyielding. "We don't have the luxury of playing it safe, Doctor. The fate of the Coalition, the fate of our entire civilization, is at stake here. We need to take bold action, no matter the cost." The room fell silent once more, the tension palpable as the gathered leaders grappled with the weight of Leah's words. They knew that she was right. The stakes were too high, the threat too great, to play by the old rules. If they were going to save their people, they would have to be willing to take risks, to push the boundaries of what they thought possible. After a long, agonizing moment, General Riker stepped forward, his weathered face set in a determined expression. "Then we're with you, Admiral," he said, his voice firm and unwavering. "Whatever it takes to protect the Coalition, we'll do it, even if it means harnessing the power of this forgotten superweapon." Leah felt a surge of relief, but it was tempered by the gravity of the task that lay before them. They were about to embark on a mission unlike any the Coalition had ever undertaken, a journey into the unknown, where the very fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. With a renewed sense of purpose, Leah turned to her assembled team, her eyes burning with a fierce determination. "Then we have work to do. Dr. Chen, I want you to gather your team and start exploring every possible avenue for understanding and potentially harnessing the power of this weapon. General Riker, I need you to mobilize the fleet. We're going to need every asset we can muster if we're going to stand a chance against this threat." The room erupted into a flurry of activity as the gathered leaders sprang into action, each one driven by a singular, unifying purpose: to protect the Coalition and the people they served from the dark forces that threatened to consume them. Leah watched as the room emptied, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon. She knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, that the stakes had never been higher. But she also knew that the Coalition had faced adversity before and emerged stronger for it. This time would be no different. With the combined might of their greatest minds and their bravest warriors, she was confident that they would find a way to triumph over this forgotten superweapon and secure the future of their civilization, no matter the cost.